Well, we're anchored on a very windy day. It's blowing about 25 knots. I'm hiding behind my spray hood here so you're not getting too much wind in the microphone. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about anchors and anchoring. This boat displaces about 12.5 tons. She's my yacht when she's in cruising trim. And I've got a 30 kilogram Bruce anchor. That's really worth having. That's going to do the job, and it does. In decent holding ground with a decent scope of chain cable out, I've never known it to drag, and I don't see any reason to think it's going to start now. In fact, I carry a lot of chain. I've got 40 fathoms of 3/8 inch chain, which is, in new money, about 75 metres of 10 millimetre chain. And that really is always enough for me. I've sailed halfway around the planet and back, and I've never found the need to have more chain cable than that, except very occasionally in places like Turkey where you anchor in super deep water. In all normal circumstances it's enough. I find with that sort of ground tackle 3-to-1 scope is plenty. Textbooks today are telling you have to use 4-to-1. That's because most of the ground tackle is Mickey Mouse. But if you've got good ground tackle, 3-to-1 will do you in most circumstances. Today, I'm in an unusual situation because I've anchored in quite shallow water, shallower than I'd like really, but it's all there is here. You have to do what you can, don't you? And I'm in 4 metres of water. My boat draws 2.15, so I've laid a very long scope of chain cable. I'm lying to something like 6 or 7-to-1. I've got all the room in the world and I've paid for the chain, I've got a windlass, I might as well lay it out there. It's not going to do any good in the locker, is it? So that's it. Now there is a problem about this, because in shallow water, however much chain cable you lie, sooner or later it comes up tight like that and you lie pulling to the anchor. In very deep water the weight of the chain helps and it doesn't happen so much, but right now it's happening here. That's a situation that's less than ideal, and it's because of the shallow water. Another situation that's less than ideal is when you're anchored in with a lot of boats around you, or maybe in a very tight place, and you can't lay as much scope as you'd want, but you know that you're probably okay and the holding ground's decent, but you end up on a 2-to-1 or 2.5-to-1 scope, which really isn't enough. Now then, what are you going to do? I remember once in that situation in my old pilot cutter, I was anchored up a river in Brittany, and there was no room really, but I really wanted to be where I was, and it wasn't too windy, so I lay there, and as I came down at low water, I got closer and closer to the bank as the chain stretched out, but I never quite got to the bank. This time I saw the remains of an old car right under my transom when I was lying there at low water. I thought, blimey, it's a good thing I haven't got any more cable out. And a fisherman came by at that moment. I asked him in my poor schoolboy French, I said, what's this down here? And he said, oh, it is a Citroën 2 chevaux. And he said, it was left there by a suicide. The guy had driven it into the river and done what he had to do. Poor fella. We don't know what his circumstances were. You shouldn't chuckle really, but the fact that it was a 2CV and it was France, and this fisherman thought it was hilarious. So that was that. Now then, that situation was assisted by weighting my cable. I was drifting back and back at low water, and I realised that I couldn't lay any more scope, but what I could do was weight the cable, and that would pull the catenary, the curve of the cable, it would pull it forward and hold me away from the hazard. In a situation like this, where I'm on a long cable in a shallow draft, same thing happens. What I really need to do is weight that cable down to take some of the sting out of it. You read a lot about this in books and magazines, and it's a controversial thing, and it's something I do very rarely. But when I do want to do it, and I'm going to do it now because I'm fed up with that cable snubbing, I deploy my chum, which is the magic piece of equipment which came my way at the popular price of £0 about 40 years ago. I won't tell you the circumstances, but this is it. It's a wonderful piece of Victorian, look at this, what a lovely piece of gear. This goes over the chain comes through here, it just slots in there, and when the weight comes on, this is part of the weight here, it snaps shut so it can't come off. You've got a nice handle to hold it by, and you put a piece of rope on it. I've got a short piece of rope on it today because I'm in shallow water. And here's the clever bit. This is really quite heavy as it stands. I'm a big fella, and it's something considerable, that weight. Now then, if I want to weight it up some more, which I always do, look what you get as part of the kit. They call this a lead biscuit, and believe me, that's serious, and it's heavy, and it slips on here like that. And if that isn't enough, you get the next one, and you put that on, and that will, there it goes, it'll snuggle up to its mate, the first one on. There it is, sit there beautifully. And we got 2 more. So we can put a massive amount of weight on, and when you've got all that weight on, you've got at least 100 weight there, 50 kilograms, and that is really going to do some good. I've seen all sorts of other ways of doing this. People put a shackle over the chain and put a bit of a butcher's weight on it or something. It's all very well. It'll do it, but this is so good because it's an awkward thing to put a big heavy weight on a chain which is outboard of the stem head. You can't get round there and you're breaking your neck. But with this, because these guys come off, it's not too heavy when you start out. That one's got a bit tight, hasn't it? It's tight. You know why it's tight? It's tight because I painted this last winter, and it's so well engineered that the paint I put on here, 2 coats of good old British Hammerite, have actually swelled it by enough thousandth of an inch to make that awkward to get on. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're going to do, we're going to put this on now. I'm not going to film me actually putting it on because that will be a sordid business, but I'm going to get it on and then we're going to shoot it as I lower it away down the chain cable, and we'll see what happens. So, well, wish me luck. I'll see you on the foredeck. Okay, well, I've got it deployed. I only put 2 of the lead biscuits on, but it's looking good. So I'm going to lower away now. It's awkward to get it on, but it's worth the trouble, I think. Here we go. Down the cable it goes. And look at that. I think that's far enough in this shallow water. That's amazing how effective that's been. I'm pleased with that. That'll keep life quiet. I've forgotten how good it was. I haven't used it for a year or so. Now she's pulling back on it, and the weight is just stopping it going right the way out as it was before. So that's good. I think we'll call that a job. There you are, the anchor weight. It's a bit of a Victorian one. I don't know how you're going to get one like that, but well, it works. Maybe you can contrive something of your own.